was walking with his friend Ikitome. Along their path stood Iya, the rock. This was not just any rock, it was special. It had those spidery lines of green moss all over it, the kind that tells a story. Iya had power. Coyote said, "Why, this is a nice looking rock. I think it has power." Coyote took off the thick blanket he was wearing and put it on the rock. "Here, Iya, take this as a present. Take this blanket, friend rock, to keep you from freezing. You must feel cold." "Wow, a giveaway," said Ikitome. "You sure are in a giving mood today, friend?" "Ah, it's nothing. I'm always giving things away. Iya looks real nice in my blanket." "His blanket now," said Ikitome. The two friends went on. Pretty soon a cold rain started. The rain turned to hail. The hail turned to slush. Coyote and Ikitome took refuge in a cave where it was cold and wet. Ikitome was all right. He had his thick buffalo robe. Coyote had only a shirt, and he was shivering. He was freezing. His teeth were chattering. "Kola, friend of mine," Coyote said to Ikitome, "go back and give me my fine blanket. I need it. And that rock has no use for it. He's been getting along without a blanket for ages. Hurry, I'm freezing." Ikitome went back to Iya, saying, "Can I have that blanket back, please?" The rock said, "No, I like it. What is given is given." Ikitome returned and told Coyote, "He won't give it back." "That no good, ungrateful rock," said Coyote. Has he paid for the blanket? Has he worked for it? I'll go get it myself." "Friend," said Ikitome, Tunka, Iya, the rock. There's a lot of power there. Maybe you should let him keep it." "Are you crazy? This is an expensive blanket of many colors and great thickness. I'll go talk to him." Coyote went back and told Iya, "Hey, rock, what's the meaning of this? What do you need a blanket for? Let me have it back right now." "No," said the rock. "What is given is given." "You're a bad rock. Don't you care that I'm freezing to death? That I'll catch a cold?" Coyote jerked the blanket away from Iya and put it on. So there, that's the end of it. "By no means the end," said the rock. Coyote went back to the cave. The rain and hail stopped, and the sun came out again. So Coyote and Ikitome sat before the cave, sunning themselves, eating pemmican, I think you pronounce it, and fry bread, and wahabi, berry soup. After eating, they took out their pipes and had a smoke. All of a sudden, Ikitome said, "What's that noise?" "What noise? I don't hear anything." "A crashing, a rumble far off." "Yes, friend, I hear it now. Friend Coyote, it's getting stronger and nearer, like thunder or an earthquake." "It is rather strong and loud. I wonder what it can be." "I have a pretty good idea, friend," said Ikitome. Then they saw the great rock. It was Iya, rolling, thundering, crashing upon them. "Friend, let's run for it," said Ikitome. "Iya means to kill us." The two ran as fast as they could, while the rock rolled after them, coming closer and closer. "Friend, let's swim the river. The rock is so heavy, he sure can't swim," cried Ikitome. So they swam the river, but Iya, the great rock, also swam over the river as if he had been made of wood. "Friend, into the timber, among the big trees," cried Coyote. "That big rock surely can't get through this thick forest." They ran among the trees, but the huge Iya came rolling along after them, shivering and splintering the big pines to pieces, left and right. The two came onto the flats. "Oh, oh!" cried Ikitome. "Spider-Man." "Spider-Man?" Right, Ikitome was one of the characters from last week's stories, huh? Anyways, let's see. "Friend Coyote, this is really not my quarrel. I just remembered. I have pressing business to attend to. So long." Ikitome rolled himself into a tiny ball and became a spider. He disappeared into a mouse hole. Coyote ran on and on, the big thundering rock closer at his heels. Then Ia, the big rock, rolled right over Coyote, flattening him out altogether. Ia took the blanket, rolled back to his own place, saying, "So there." Ia, a Wasichu rancher riding along saw Coyote laying there all flattened out. "What a nice rug," said the rancher, picking Coyote up, and he took the rug home. The rancher put Coyote right in front of his fireplace. Whenever Coyote is killed, he can make himself come to life again, but it took him the whole night to puff himself up into his usual shape. In the morning, the rancher's wife told her husband, "I just saw your rug running away." Friends, hear this. Always be generous in heart. If you have something to give it forever. Told by Jenny Leading Cloud in White River Rosebud in Native American Reservation, South Dakota, 1967. Well, that was quite a fun and interesting tale. I mean, it's nice that we do have stories about morals and such. Quite a fun and silly story, and oh, yeah, no, I'm not reading this next tale. Yeah. Let's see. What other kind of story can we put on here? Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, glad you enjoyed it. Let's see. Maybe just a story about. Yeah, a story about just animals in general. Let's see. 387. Okay, so this is a story from the Cheyenne, The Great Race. When the Great Mystery created the earth and all living things upon it, the people and the animals lived in peace. Neither people nor animals ate flesh. Now it happened in the course of many seasons that the buffalo began to think that they were the most powerful beings in the world. They came to believe that this gave them the right to kill and eat other animals, and people as well. Then the people said, "This isn't fair. We humans and the buffalo were created equal. But if it happens that one or the other must be the most powerful, then it should be us." The buffalo said, "Let's get this settled." Excuse me, I'm just hearing something weird. Oh, sorry, that was just my folks in the other room watching TV a little bit too loud. Oh, Grim Cypress, thanks a lot for the follow. Hope you have a nice relaxing time here. Okay, so where was I? See, buffalo and humans about to have a fight. Buffalo said, "Let's get this settled. We should have a contest to see whether we eat you or you eat us. How about a race?" The people said, "But in a race, you have an unfair advantage. 2 legs can't compete with 4. Suppose we let the bird race for us. They have wings. You have 4 legs. That makes it more even." The buffalo said, "Agreed." Oh, you bought so cute. Aw, thanks. Yep, like I said, my VTuber mother, Nora Mort, she did an absolutely excellent, amazing job, and you should definitely check her out and my other siblings. They are, I mean, just Nora makes such elegant and beautiful characters, and I can't help but be proud to be part of her family. Okay, so they're choosing their runners. Let's see. Then some of the animals said, "We should have a chance to race too." "That's right. It's only fair," said the buffalo and the people. So all living things went to a place at the edge of the Black Hills called Buffalo Gap. There they lined up for the race. As their contestant, the buffalo chose the running, slim buffalo woman, a young cow who was the fastest of all animals and had never been beaten in a foot race. To race for them, the human beings had chosen 4 birds: a hummingbird, a meadowlark, a hawk, and a magpie. Now, in those early days of the world, the birds and animals had no color. Now, for the race, they all painted themselves carefully, each creature according to its own medicine, its own vision. For example, the skunk painted a white stripe on its back. The black-tailed deer painted its tail black. The antelope took some red-brown earth and, mixing it with water, painted its whole hide. And, as all the creatures painted themselves for this great race, so they have looked ever since. Then, the signal to the race was given, and the crowd of runners started toward a hill, which was the halfway point. Running Slim took off in a flash, with Buffalo cheering her on. For a while, Hummingbird flew along with her, but soon he fell back exhausted, and Meadowlark took over. Still, Running Slim kept far ahead, leading the great mass of racers with their thundering hooves. Though they had already covered a great distance, Running Slim was fresh. By the time Running Slim reached the halfway point, she and the lark were far ahead of the field. At the hill, the umpires were shouting, "Now, turn and race back to the starting point, to Buffalo Gap." The lark heard this and thought, "I can't make it this far." He dropped out of the race. But Hawk was coming on strongly. Now Hawk, acknowledged to be the fastest of the birds, suddenly shot ahead of Running Slim. The people shouted for joy, but not for long. The hawk's endurance did not match his swiftness, and the sudden spurt exhausted him. Again Running Slim came on, thundering ahead. With her deep chest, powerful legs, and great lungs, it seemed that she could keep up the pace forever. Then, far in the rear, a little black and white dot could be seen, coming up, flying hard. This was Magpie, a slow bird, but strong-hearted and persevering. The buffalo herd paid no attention to Magpie. They were cheering their runner, while the people watched silently. Some of the racers were running so hard now that blood spurted from their mouth and nostrils. It colored the earth beneath, which has ever remained red along the trail where the race was run. At last, Buffalo Gap came into sight. Powerful and confident as she was, Running Slim herself was beginning to slow down, though it was hardly noticeable. Even she was not even aware of it, but ran along feeling sure that she would win. Then, very slowly, imperceptibly, Magpie began to gain on her. Buffalo Gap was closer now, though she was still a good ways off. Thought Slim Running. She could feel herself tiring. The buffalo were grunting and stomping, trying to encourage her. Magpie was still behind, but coming on steadily. Now Buffalo Gap was near. Running Slim Buffalo Woman was really tired, but she gathered all her strength for the last spurt, thundering along, her heart close to bursting. By then, however, Magpie had come up even with her. Both the buffalo and the people were cheering their racers on, calling out to them, yelling and stomping. So the two were speeding up, putting the very last of their strength into it. Running Slim Buffalo Woman and Magpie. Thus, they neared the sticks, painted red, planted in the earth, which marked the finishing line. It was not until they were a handbreadth away from those sticks that at last moment, Magpie finally shot ahead. The people gave a great shout of happiness, and both racers fell exhausted. So, the humans had won, and the buffalo had lost. And ever since the people have respected the magpie, never hunting it or eating it. So the people became more powerful than the buffalo and all the other animals, and from that time on, the people have hunted the buffalo for their food. Recorded by Richard Erdos on the Crow Agency during the Intertribal Crow Fair, summer 1968. Another cute, fun tale. Yep, race stories are always so exciting. Let's see. Maybe one more story. I'm starting to get a little tired out, and I still got to talk about future plans. Let's see, perhaps a long one. I mean, let's see, what would be a good story to end things off at? One more story that could be entertaining, but is something more for relaxing. Mm-hmm. See, boom, boom, boom. How about I'm having a hard time deciding, sorry. I mean, there are ghost stories, but we want something to relax to. How about this one? To end things off, let's see. We shall read something a little bit more of a romance story. Well, I don't know how romantic this one will be. The Man Who Married the Moon. Oh, and perfect. It's a long one, so, well, longer, but it'll be perfect to end things off with. So, from the Isleta Pueblos, The Man Who Married the Moon. Let's see. This story, prepared for a popular magazine at the turn of the century, blends Pueblo folklore with late Victorian language and sensibilities. Corn maidens are both malevolent, as in this tale, and benevolent spirits who give themselves as food so that the people may live. Okay, here we go. Long before the first Spaniards came to New Mexico, Isleta stood where it stands today, on a lava ridge that defies the gnawing current of the Rio Grande. In those far days, Nacharuchu, the bluish light of dawn, dwelt in Isleta and was a leader of his people. A weaver by trade, his rude loom hung from the dark rafters of his room, and in it he wove the strong black mantras or robes, like those which are the dress of Pueblo women to this day. Being, besides being very wise in medicine, Nachiruchu was young and tall and strong and handsome. All the girls of the village thought it a shame that he did not care to take a wife. For him, the shyest dimples played. For him, the whitest teeth flashed out, as the owners passed him in the plaza, but he had no eyes for them. Then, in the custom of the Tiwa, bashful fingers worked wondrous fringed shirts of buckskin or gay owl sheaths, which found their way to his house by unknown messengers. But Nacharuchu paid no more attention to the gifts than to the smiles, and just kept weaving and weaving, such mantas as were never seen in the land of the Tiwan before or since. Two of his admirers were sisters who were called in Tiwa language. Oh, I feel so bad. I'll probably gonna mispronounce this. Echitu Richaamnin, the Yellow Corn Maidens. I hope they just keep calling them the Yellow Corn Maidens from here. They were both young and pretty, but they had the evil road, or were witches, possessed of a magic power which they had always used for ill. When all the other girls came up, discouraged at Nachuruchu's at wait, at Nachuruchu's indifference, the Yellow Corn Maidens kept coming day after day, trying to win his notice. At last, the matter became so annoying to Nachiruchu that he hired the deep-voiced town crier to go through all the streets and announce that in 4 days, Nachiruchu would choose a wife. For dippers to take water from the big earthen jars the Tiwa used then, as they use today, queer little omates made of a gourd. But Nachiruchu, being a great medicine man and very rich, had a dipper of pure pearl, shaped like the gourds, but wonderfully precious. On the 4th day, proclaimed the crier, Nachiruchu will hang his pearl omate at his door, when every girl who will may throw a handful of cornmeal at it, and she whose meal is so well ground that it sticks to the omate shall be the wife of Nachiruchu. When this strange news came rolling through the still evening air, there was a great scampering of little moccasined feet. The girls ran out from hundreds of gray adobe houses to catch every word. And when the crier had passed on, they ran back into their storerooms and began to ransack the corn bins for the biggest, evenest, most perfect ears. Shelling the choicest, each took a few handfuls of kernels to the sloping metate, and with the mano or handstone, scrubbed the blue grist up and down till the hard corn was a soft blue meal. All the next day, and the next, and the next, they ground it over and over again until it grew finer than ever flour was before. And every girl felt sure that her meal would stick to the omate of the handsome young weaver. The yellow corn maidens worked hardest of all. Day and night for 4 days, they ground and ground with all the magic spells they knew. Now, in those far-off days, the moon had not gone into the sky to live, but was a maiden of Isleta, and a very beautiful girl she was, but blind of one eye. She had long admired Nachiruchu, but was always too maidenly to try to attract his attention, as the other girls had done. And at the time when the crier made his proclamation, she happened to be away at her father's ranch. It was only upon the 4th day that she returned to town, and in a few moments the girls were to go with their meal to test it upon the magic dipper. The 2 yellow corn maidens were just coming from their house as she passed, and they told her what was to be done. They were very confident of their success, and had hoped to pain her. They laughed derisively as she went running to her home. By this time, the long file of girls was coming to Nachiruchu's house, outside whose door hung the pearl omate. Each girl carried in her hand a little jar of meal. As they passed the door, one by one, each took from the jar a handful and threw it against the magic dipper. But each time, the meal had dropped to the ground, and left the pure pearl undimmed and radiant as ever. At last came the yellow corn maidens, who had waited to watch the failure of the others. As they came to where they could see Nachiruchu sitting in his loom, they called, "Ah, here we have the meal that will stick," and each threw a handful at the omate. But it did not stick at all. And still from his seat, Nachiruchu could see, in the shell's mirror-like surface, that all went on the outside. The yellow corn maidens were very angry, and instead of passing on as the others had done, they stood there and kept throwing at the omate, which smiled back at them with undiminished luster. Just then, last of all, came the moon. With a single handful of meal, which she had hastily ground, the 2 sisters were in a fine rage by this time, and mocked her by saying, "Ho, Palio, moon, you poor thing, we are very sorry for you. Here we have been grinding our meal for 4 days, and still it will not stick. And we did not tell you till today How then can you ever hope to win Natsuruchu? Puh, you silly little thing. But the moon paid no attention whatsoever to their taunts. Drawing back her little dimpled hand, she threw the meal gently against the perlomate, and so fine was it ground that every tiniest bit of it clung to the polished shell, and not a particle fell to the ground. When Natsuruchu saw that, he rose up quickly from his loom, and came and took the moon by the hand, saying, "You are she who shall be my wife. You shall never want for anything, since I have very much." And he gave her many beautiful mantras and cotton wraps, and fat boots of buckskin that wrap round and round, that she might dress as the wife of a rich chief. But the yellow corn maidens, who had seen it all, went away, vowing revenge on the moon. Okay, taking a moment for a water break. Excuse me for a moment. Okay. Natsuruchu and his sweet moon wife were very happy together. There was no other such housekeeper in all the pueblo as she, and no other hunter brought home so much buffalo meat from the vast plains to the east, nor so many antelopes and black-tailed deer and jackrabbits from the manzanos as did Natsuruchu. But constantly he was saying to her, "Moon wife, beware of the yellow corn maidens, for they have the evil road, and will try to do you harm, but you must always refuse to do whatever they propose." And always the young wife promised. One day the yellow corn maidens came to the house and said, "Friend Natsuruchu, we are going to the Ilano, the plain, to gather amole." Amole is a soapy root that the pueblos use for washing. "Will you not let your wife go with us?" "Oh yes, she may go," said Natsuritsu, but taking her aside, he said, "Now be sure that while you are with them, you refuse whatever they propose." The moon promised, and started away with the yellow corn maidens. In those days, there was only a thick forest of cottonwoods, where now the smiling vineyards, gardens, and orchards of Isleta are spread, and to reach the Ilano, the three women had to go through the forest. In the very center of it, they came to a deep pozo, a square well, with steps at one side leading down to the water's edge. "Aye," said the yellow corn maidens, "how hot and thirsty is our walk. Come, let us get a drink of water." But the moon, remembering her husband's words, said politely that she did not wish to drink. They urged in vain, but at last, looking down into the pozo, they called, "Oh, moon friend, come and look at this still water, and see how pretty you are." The moon, as you know, has always been just as fond of looking at herself in the water as she was to this very day, and forgetting Natsuritsu's warning, she came to the brink and looked down upon her fair reflection. But at that very moment, the two witch sisters pushed her head foremost into the pozo and drowned her. And then they filled the well with earth and went happy as wicked hearts can be. As the sun crept along the adobe floor, closer and closer to his seat, Natsuritsu began to look oftener from his loom to the door. When the shadows were very long, he suddenly sprang to his feet and walked to the house of the yellow corn maidens with long, long strides. "Yellow corn maidens," he asked them very sternly, "where is my wife?" "Why isn't she at home?" asked the wicked sisters, as if greatly surprised. "She got enough amole long before we did." "Ah," groaned Natsuritsu within himself, "it is as I thought, they have done her ill." But without a word to him, he turned on his heel and went away. From that hour, all went wrong at Isleta, for Natsuritsu held the well-being of all his people, even unto life and death, paying no attention to what was going on about him, He sat motionless upon the topmost crosspiece of the estufa, the kiva or sacred council chamber ladder, the highest point in all the town, with his head bowed upon his hands. There he sat for days, never speaking, never moving. The children who played along the streets looked up with awe to the motionless figure and ceased their boisterous play. The old men shook their heads gravely and muttered, "We are in evil times, for Natsurutsu is mourning, and will not be comforted. There is no more rain, so that our crops are dying in the fields. What shall we do?" At last all the counselors met together and decided there must be another effort to find the lost wife. It was true that the great Natsurutsu had searched for her in vain, and the people had helped him, but perhaps someone else might be more fortunate. So they took some of the sacred smoking weed wrapped in a corn husk and went to the eagle who had the sharpest eyes in the world. Giving him the sacred gift, they said, "Eagle friend, we see Natsurutsu in great trouble, for he has lost his moon wife. Come, search for her, we pray you, to discover if she be alive or dead." So the eagle took the offering and smoked the smoke prayer, and then he went winging upward into the sky. Higher and higher he rose, in great upward circles, while his keen eyes noted every stick and stone and animal on the face of all the world. But with all his eyes, he could see nothing of the lost wife. At last he came back and said, "People friends, I went up to where I could see the whole world, but I could not find her." Then the people went with an offering to the coyote, whose nose is the sharpest in all the world, and besought him to try to find the moon. The coyote smoked the smoke prayer and started off with his nose to the ground, trying to find her tracks. He trotted all over the earth, but at last he too came back without finding what he sought. Then the troubled people got the badger to search, for he is the best of all the beasts at digging. It was he whom the Trews employed to dig the caves in which the people first dwelt when they first came to this world. The badger trotted and pawed the dirt everywhere, but he could not find the moon. He came home very sad. Then they asked the osprey, who could see furthest underwater, and he sailed high above the lakes and rivers in the world till he could count the pebbles and the fish in them, but he too failed to discover the lost moon. By this time the crops were dead and seared the fields, and thirsty animals walked, crying along the river. Scarcely could the people themselves dig deep enough to find water to keep them alive. They were at a loss. But at last they thought, "We will now go to the Pa'akuite Ada, the great water goose grandfather," which means turkey buzzard. Excuse me for a moment, there's this odd noise that I gotta investigate. Be right back. Sorry about that. Everything's fine. The folks were just knocking stuff over. Everything's all good. Okay, so they went to the church to the water goose grandfather, who can find the dead, for surely she is dead, or the others would have found her. So they went to him and besought him. The turkey buzzard wept when he saw Natsuruchu still sitting there upon the ladder, and said, "Truly, it is sad for our great friend, but for me, I am afraid to go, since they who are more mighty than I have already failed. Yet I will try." And spreading his broad wings, he went climbing up the spiral ladder of the sky. Higher he wheeled, and higher, till at last not even the eagle could see him. Up and up, till the sun began to singe his head, and not even the eagle had ever been so high. He cried with pain, but he still kept mounting, until he was so close to the sun that all the feathers were burned from his head and neck. But he could see nothing, and at last, frantic with the burning, he came wheeling downward. When he got back to the estufa, where all the people were waiting, they saw that his head and neck had been burned bare of feathers. And from that day to this, the feathers would never grow out again. "Did you see nothing?" they all asked, when they all bathed his burns. "Nothing," he answered, "except when I was halfway down, I saw in the middle of yon cottonwood forest a little mound with all the beautiful flowers in the world." "Oh!" cried Natsuruchu, speaking for the first time. "Go, friend, and bring me one flower from the very middle of the mound." Off flew the buzzard, and in a few minutes returned with a little white flower. Natsuruchu took it, and descending from the ladder in silence, walked solemnly to his house, while all the wondering people followed. When Natsuruchu came inside his home once more, he took a new mantra and spread it in the middle of his room. Laying the wee white flower tenderly in its center, he put another mantra above it. Then, dressing himself in the splendid buckskin suit that a lost wife had made him, and talking in his right hand the sacred gwahe rattle, he seated himself at the head of the mantras and sang, "Shuna, Shuna, aye, 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 seeking her, there away, there away." When he finished the song, all he could see that the little flower had begun to grow, so that it lifted the upper manta a little. Again he sang, shaking his gourd, and still the flower kept growing. Again and again he sang, and when he had finished the fourth time, it was plain to all that a human form lay between the two mantas. And when he sang the song for the fifth time, the form sat up and moved. Tenderly he lifted away the upper cloth, and there he saw, there sat his sweet moon wife, fairer than ever, and alive as before. For 4 days the people danced and sang in the public square. Natsuruchu was happy again, and now the rain began to fall. The choked earth drank and was glad and green, and the dead crops came to life. When his wife told him what the witch sisters had done, he was very angry, and that day he made a beautiful hoop to play the hoop game. He painted it and put many strings across it and decorated it with beaded buckskin. Now, said he, "the wicked yellow corn maidens will come to congratulate you. I will pretend not to know where you were. You must not speak of that, but invite them to go out and play a game with you." In a day or two, the witch sisters did come, with deceitful words, and the moon invited them to go out and play a game. They went up to the edge of the Ilano, and there she let them get a glimpse of the pretty hoop. "Oh, give us that, moon friend," they teased, but she refused. At last, however, she said, Well, we will play the hoop game. I will stand here and you there, and if, when I roll it to you, you catch it before it falls upon its side, you may have it. So the witch sister stood a little way down the hill, and she rolled the bright hoop, and as it came trundling to them, both grasped it at the same instant, and lo! Instead of the yellow corn maidens, there were two great snakes with tears rolling down their ugly faces. The moon came and put upon their heads a little of the pollen of the corn blossom, still used by Pueblo snake charmers to tame them, and a pinch of sacred meal for their food. Now, she said, you will have the reward of treacherous friends. Here shall be your home among these rocks and cliffs forever. But you must never be found upon the prairie, and you must never bite a person. Remember, you are women and must be gentle. And then the moon went home to her husband, and they were very happy together. As for the sister snakes, they still dwell where she bade them, and never venture away, though sometimes the people bring them to their houses to catch mice, for these snakes never hurt a person. Published by Charles F. Loomis in St. Nicholas Magazine. Let's see, it also says, in view of Pueblo esteem for snakes, the sisters' punishment was a mild one. Some Pueblo tribes view snakes as rain bringers, and the heroes of Pueblo myths sometimes marry snake maidens, as in the Hopi Boy in the Sun. According to a government report of 1900, the superstitious regard of these natives for snakes, inasmuch as they hold a prominent part in religious rites, protects them and renders them abundant among the village. A snake, on being found in the Pueblo, is merely carried off on sticks and laid outside of man's immediate range. Notice that when the wicked corn maidens were turned into snakes, they became gentler and kinder beings. Whew. A charming tale. Maybe not one of my favorites, but still a charming one. Yeah, but fortunately, these stories are a bit dated, not exactly modern, but the emotions carried behind the story still work in modern day. And so I think tonight will be the last night that I read through these Native American myths. It's only a few, and there are still a whole lot of stories that could be read from this book, but I am content with what we read. Gonna take a quick break, and then we'll discuss what it is that will be coming for these next few weeks. Be back in a few moments. Okay. Oh, let me just put this stuff away. So, in a couple of weeks, I am going to be moving. I am going to be moving to Los Angeles. And I am quite excited about that, but also, this is going to be a big change for me. I'm going to be moving far away from a place that I've been spending a whole lot of time. I mean, I've been living in this particular location for a very long time, almost all my life, so can't help but feel a little bit nervous about it. Yeah, but hope you don't mind. As I'm talking here, I'm also going to be working on what my schedule will be for the next week. Let's see. Boom, boom. Next week is going to be January 9th through what? 9th through the 15th. Okay. So, Monday, I'm going to be keeping it as possibly a day to be doing to do IRL stuff. Tuesday, I mean, I do want to continue my Pokemon Catch 'em All challenge, but it's just a matter of deciding which day I want to do it on, because instead of doing it both Tuesday and Wednesday, on one of those 2 days, yeah, in fact, I think I'll do it on Tuesday. Maybe even start in an earlier time where I am going to be seeing if I can bring my mother on here. Yeah, Mama Brooks. I'm gonna see if I can have her participate a little bit. I mean, she doesn't know a thing about VTubers. I should probably bring her boyfriend on as well, but I don't think either of them know a single thing about VTubers. They don't even know that I'm live streaming. For all they know, I'm just talking to. I just do other things at this hour. I might be just talking with friends online, but, well, that isn't too far off. But yes, next week I will be introducing them to VTubers, and if they're up for it, I might try to have them play a game with me. We'll see what happens. Let's see. The only question is, I'm not sure what game to play with them. I mean, I want to do Overcooked, but I'm not sure if that would be too complex for them. I mean, they're the kind of people who they see a controller and all the buttons, and they want to stick with using only 2 buttons at the most. So I'll probably be trying to flip between doing maybe I'll let them decide on the day of where we'll either do Overcooked or Mario Kart. But either way, Tuesday I will be trying to I am going to be introducing VTubers. Let's see. Introducing VTubers to Mama Brooks. And I'm not sure what to call her boyfriend right now. But yeah, we'll be doing that. I think Wednesday we'll stick to the Catch 'em All challenge. Yep, Photoshop works with me. That'll be day 8. Friday we'll do another bedtime story stream, not American folklore, maybe something different. Maybe just a more typical fairy tale kind of story. But then, yep, after Friday, I might not be. After Friday, I might not be streaming for a little bit because, yeah, I'm gonna have to spend those next 3 days packing for the big move. And for that last week, well, for the week I'm moving, I am going to be on a train for 2 days. And I would like to know if you people would be interested in me trying to do a little bit more IRL streaming while trying to avoid a face reveal. I don't want to break immersion too much. But yeah, that's something I'll be asking on Twitter about whether people would be interested in me doing that or not. In fact, I think I already did make a post on that. So, you folks watching, just let me know if you want me to try doing IRL train streams. I mean, what it would end up doing, I don't have a fancy camera. Any sort of streaming I would end up just doing on my Android phone. So the quality probably will be pretty scuffed. So I think that will be it. I'll be moving. And then once I get settled into LA, we'll see how my Wi-Fi situation is and see if I can't set up a more regular stream schedule. I mean, I got a rough idea of what my weekly schedule will be like. If things work out okay, I may still be able to do 3 to 4 streams a week, but if things get busy again, I may have to again go on and extend a several month hiatus, but I really hope it won't happen this time around. But yeah, that's what the future's looking. Keep an eye out on Twitter for any posts and such, and yeah, I will see you folks next week where I am going to have some special guests. But until then, this is Roy Brooks signing off. For raids, we shall pop by and say hi to someone who is also doing a bit more of a relaxing stream. They're doing a bit more, except instead of reading stories, they are doing art. Let me just type in her name. We shall be popping in and saying hello to Fluffy Naps. But so, until next Tuesday, this is Roy Book signing off. I hope you folks have a good night. Later, folks.